I think it's best if you move out." Those were the words that almost made my heart stop. Not because they came from a stranger. Not because they came from a lawyer or a judge. But because they came from my own son. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He didn't even look ashamed. He just stood there, holding his wife's hand, while she nodded slowly beside him. Like this was something they had practiced many times before. And the worst part? We were standing in my living room. The same room where I raised him. The same room where I rocked him to sleep as a baby. The same room where his father took his last breath. That was the moment I knew my life had changed forever. But what they didn't know, what she didn't know, was that she had made one very serious mistake. She had missed one critical detail. Before I tell you what that detail was, let me pause for a second. If you enjoy real-life emotional stories about family betrayal, hidden truths, and shocking twists, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments, what part of the country are you watching from? I want to know who is listening to this story right now. Now, let me take you back to how this nightmare began. That morning started quietly. The sun came through the window like it always did. I said my prayers. I made tea with steady hands. I had no idea that by evening, I would be told I no longer belonged in the house I helped build. Yes, my house. This house was not a gift. It was not an inheritance. It was not something I moved into later. I bought it with my husband when we were young and struggling. We worked long hours. We saved every little thing. We raised our children inside these walls. After my husband died, I stayed here alone for years, until my son begged to move in after he got married. "Please," he said back then. "We'll take care of you." I believed him. That was my first mistake. When his wife came into my life, I welcomed her with open arms. I treated her like my own child. I gave her the best room. I cooked her favorite meals. When she was tired, I helped. When she cried, I listened. But slowly, very slowly, things changed. She stopped greeting me in the morning. She corrected me when I spoke. She whispered to my son when she thought I wasn't listening. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Marriage is hard, I thought. They need time. But my son started changing too. He stopped asking for my advice. He stopped sitting with me. He stopped defending me. One afternoon, I heard voices behind their bedroom door. "She's always around," she said. "She interferes too much. This doesn't feel like our home." I stood there holding clean clothes, my hands shaking. Still, I said nothing. I chose peace. I chose silence. I chose love. Until that Sunday evening. They asked me to sit down. That alone made my chest feel tight. My son stood by the window. His wife sat calmly on the couch, her arms crossed, her face confident, almost proud. "We need to talk," my son said. She spoke before he could continue. "We've decided it's time for you to move out," she said, as if she were talking about changing furniture. For a moment, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my mind could not accept what my ears were hearing. "Move out?" I asked quietly. "From where?" My son finally turned to look at me. "You've been causing problems," he said. "There's too much tension in the house." I felt something break inside my chest. I asked him one simple question. "Who told you that?" He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I understood everything. She stood up and walked around the room, touching things. My things, like they already belonged to her. "We need our space," she said. "This marriage needs peace." Then she said the words that cut the deepest. "You can go stay with relatives. Or find somewhere else. Find somewhere else." At my age. After everything I had given. My ears rang. My hands felt cold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. I wanted to remind them of every sacrifice I had made. But instead, I noticed something. Something small. Something quiet. Something sitting right there in the room. Something she had completely forgotten. And in that moment, while my son stood silent and his wife smiled like she had already won, I realized something important. She had turned my son against me. Yes. But she had missed one critical detail. And because of that detail, this story was far from over. Before the cold looks. Before the closed doors. Before my son stood in front of me and chose her words over my tears. There was a time when everything felt safe. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when love still sounded honest, and smiles still meant something. When my son first told me he was getting married, I cried tears of joy. Not the quiet kind. The loud, thankful kind. I thanked God. I thanked life. I thanked every sacrifice I had ever made. I believed this was the reward for all those years of struggle, seeing my child build a home of his own. He brought her home one afternoon. She smiled wide. She spoke softly. She called me Mama, the first day we met. That word touched my heart. I welcomed her without fear. I cooked her favorite meals, even before I knew them well. I rearranged the house so she would feel comfortable. I gave them privacy. I stepped back when I felt I should. I wanted to be the kind of mother-in-law people praised. But looking back now, that was when I ignored the first warning sign. It was small. So small that most people would laugh if I told them. The first night she slept in my house, I noticed she went through my cupboards. Not quickly. Slowly. Carefully. Opening drawers. Touching documents. Looking at shelves I had not opened in years. When I asked her what she was looking for, she smiled. "Oh, nothing," she said. "Just getting familiar." I smiled back. I should not have. As the wedding plans began, she took control of everything. The guest list. The food. The music. Even who sat where. She corrected me often. "No, that's not how we do things now. This is better. That's old-fashioned." Each word felt small on its own. But together they formed something heavy. My son noticed nothing. Or maybe he noticed, but chose not to see. Whenever I tried to advise him, she would squeeze his arm gently and say, "Let's talk about this later." Later never came. After the wedding, they moved in. It was supposed to be temporary. "Just until we save enough," they said. I agreed. I always agreed. At first, things were peaceful. Then the rules began. I was told when to cook, what to cook, when to clean, when to rest. If I sat too long, she sighed. If I spoke too much, she rolled her eyes. And slowly, my son stopped correcting her. That hurt more than anything else. One evening, I overheard her talking on the phone. Her voice was low. Serious. "Yes," she said. "Everything is in one place." I stood still. "Don't worry," she continued. "I'm handling it." My heart started beating fast. When she noticed me, she jumped. "Oh, I didn't see you there," she said, smiling too quickly. That night, I could not sleep. Something felt wrong. But again, I stayed quiet. Weeks passed. Then months. Then one morning, she made a comment that changed everything. "You know," she said casually, "this house is too big for just one person." I looked at her. "One person?" I asked. She laughed. "I mean before we came," she said quickly. "Things are better now." But the way she said it, like the house had been waiting for them, not me. I started noticing changes. Papers were moved. Folders disappeared. Rooms were rearranged without asking. When I asked my son about it, he shrugged. "She's just organizing," he said. "You worry too much. Worry too much." Those words echoed in my head. One afternoon, while cleaning, I found an envelope on the table. My name was not on it. But my address was. Inside were copies of documents I recognized immediately. My hands trembled. I closed the envelope fast when I heard footsteps. That was the moment I realized something terrible. This was not just about respect. This was not just about marriage. This was about control. And someone had been planning for a long time. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to sit my son down and tell him everything. But before I could speak, something happened. Something sudden. Something that made my blood run cold. Because that evening, my son walked into the room holding his phone, his face pale, his hands shaking. And he said something that told me. The whispers had finally worked. He stood there silently, staring at his phone. For a long moment, no one spoke. The room felt heavy, like the air itself had stopped moving. I watched my son's face change right in front of me. His eyes, which once looked at me with warmth, were now filled with confusion. And something darker. Anger. "Is this true?" he asked suddenly. My heart skipped. "Is what true?" I replied, my voice barely steady. He did not answer me. Instead, he held up his phone. "I need you to tell me the truth," he said. "Right now." I wiped my hands on my wrapper and took a step closer. "What truth?" I asked again. His wife appeared behind him, quiet, watching closely. She did not look surprised. Not at all. He finally spoke. "She says you've been hiding things from me," he said. "She says you've been planning something behind our backs." I laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it sounded unreal. "Planning what?" I asked. "She says you don't want us here," he replied. "She says you're pretending to be kind, but you're waiting for the right time to push us out." The words hit me like stones. I turned to look at her. She met my eyes calmly. "I never said that," she replied gently. "I only told him what I felt." Felt. That word burned. I tried to explain. I told him how much I loved him. I reminded him that this was his home too. I told him I had no secrets, no plans, no bad intentions. But he was no longer listening. Because the message on that phone had already planted a seed. And seeds grow fast when watered with lies. From that day, everything changed. He stopped greeting me in the morning. He stopped eating the food I cooked. If I entered a room, conversations stopped. Sometimes I would hear them whispering late at night. My name floated through the walls like a ghost. "She's manipulating you," I heard once. "She wants control," she said another time. "She's not as innocent as she looks." Each word pushed him further away. And the more distant he became, the closer he grew to her. One afternoon, I decided to confront him properly. I waited until she was out of the house. I called him to sit with me. "Look at me," I said gently. "I am your mother. Have I ever lied to you?" He avoided my eyes. "You don't understand," he replied. "She's trying to protect our marriage." "From me?" I asked, my voice breaking. He did not answer. That silence hurt more than any insult. Later that week, something else happened. I went into my room and noticed the cupboard was open. Again. This time, it was different. My documents were not just moved. Some were missing. I felt dizzy. I searched everywhere. I checked drawers, bags, folders. Nothing. That night, I could not sleep. My heart kept telling me something terrible was happening. And it was happening right inside my own house. The next morning, I overheard another conversation. "She doesn't even know yet," she said quietly. "It will be easier this way." I stepped forward, and the floor creaked. She turned quickly, her face changing in seconds. "Oh," she said. "I didn't know you were there." I wanted to ask her what she meant. But fear held my tongue. Days later, my son came home angry. He accused me of things I had never done. "You've been talking to people about us," he said. "You're trying to make us look bad." I shook my head. I would never do that, I said. But he didn't believe me. Because someone had already told him a different story. That was when I realized the truth. This was not just about misunderstandings. This was manipulation. Careful. Slow. Planned. And I was standing in the middle of it. Alone. One evening, while they were out, I decided to clean their room. I was not snooping. At least, that's what I told myself. But while folding clothes, I noticed something under the bed. A small folder. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Inside were copies of documents. My documents. Property papers. Old letters. Records. My breath caught in my throat. So this was it. This was the plan. I put everything back exactly the way I found it. I did not confront her. I did not confront my son. Instead, I did something else. Something quiet. Something careful. Because in that moment, I understood something important. If I spoke too soon, I would lose everything. And she would win. That night, as I lay in bed, listening to their voices drift through the walls, I made a decision. I would stop reacting. I would start watching. Because she thought I was weak. She thought I was confused. She thought I did not understand what was happening. But she was wrong. Very wrong. And just when I thought things could not get worse, my son walked into my room the next morning and said something that made my hands go numb. "We need to talk about the house," he said. And the look in his eyes told me. This was only the beginning. We need to talk about the house. The moment those words left his mouth, my heart dropped. He stood in my doorway, not asking permission to enter. His arms were crossed. His face was hard. He looked like a stranger wearing my son's skin. I slowly sat up on the bed. "Talk about what?" I asked. He walked in and shut the door behind him. That alone made me uneasy. "I've been thinking," he said. "This living arrangement isn't working." I nodded slowly. "I agree," I said. "There's too much tension." For a second, his face softened. Then it hardened again. "But it's more than that," he said. "We need clarity." "Clarity about what?" I asked. He hesitated. Then he said the words I will never forget. "We need to discuss ownership." I stared at him. The room felt suddenly smaller. "Ownership of what?" I asked, though I already knew. "The house," he said. "The house. My house. The one I bought with my husband long before he became an adult." I laughed quietly. "You're joking," I said. He did not smile. "She says it's not fair," he replied. "We're married. We're building a family. We need security." Security. So that was the word now. "And I don't?" I asked softly. He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not what I mean," he said quickly. "But you're getting older. Things need to be arranged properly." Arranged. Like I was a piece of furniture. I took a deep breath. "Who put this idea in your head?" I asked. He looked away. "She's just thinking ahead," he replied. "You know how women are." I almost cried. Not because of the insult, but because he didn't even realize he was repeating her words. He sat down on the edge of my bed. "We're not asking for anything unreasonable," he said. "Just some assurance." "Assurance of what?" I asked. "That this house will belong to us," he said. "Eventually." Eventually. I closed my eyes. I remembered the nights my husband and I stayed awake counting money. The years we worked without rest. The sacrifices. And now my son wanted to discuss ownership. "I am not dead," I said quietly. He flinched. "That's not what we're saying," he replied. "But that's what you mean," I said. "You want control." He stood up suddenly. "You're being difficult," he snapped. "This is why she says you don't support our marriage." There it was. Her voice. Her influence. Her words coming out of his mouth. I realized something important in that moment. He was no longer thinking for himself. He was carrying her fears, her plans, her intentions. And I was standing in the way. That evening, she joined the conversation. She sat across from me with calm eyes and a polite smile. "We just want to talk openly," she said. "No fighting." I nodded. "Then speak," I said. She folded her hands. "You should consider transferring the house to him," she said. "That way, there will be no confusion later." Just like that. As if she were asking for a cup of water. I felt my chest tighten. "And where would I live?" I asked. She smiled gently. "Of course you can stay," she said. "As long as things remain peaceful. As long as." Meaning, on her terms. My son watched silently. He did not defend me. He did not object. That silence told me everything. I asked for time to think. They agreed. Too quickly. That should have warned me. That night, I went back to my room and locked the door. I opened my old box. Inside were memories, letters, papers, and something else. Something important. I looked at it carefully. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. Because that was the moment I remembered the critical detail she had missed. The next morning, I overheard her on the phone. "She'll agree," she said confidently. "She doesn't have a choice." I stood there quietly, listening. And I realized something else. They were not planning with me. They were planning against me. Later that day, my son came to me again. "We need an answer," he said. I looked at him calmly. "I will give you one," I replied. "But not today." Because before I spoke, something happened. Something unexpected. Someone knocked on the door. And the look on her face when she heard that knock told me this was not part of her plan. The knock was firm. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Confident. 3 slow knocks. My daughter-in-law froze mid-step. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. My son looked confused. "Who could that be?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her face had lost all its color. And in that moment, before anyone even opened the door, I knew something important. This knock was not meant for me. It was meant for her. "I'll get it," my son said, moving toward the door. "No," she said too quickly. "Let me." Her voice trembled. That alone told me everything. She walked slowly, fixing her hair, forcing a smile that did not reach her eyes. When she opened the door, a man stood there. Tall. Neatly dressed. Serious. He held a brown envelope under his arm. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. "I'm looking for the owner of this property." Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. My daughter-in-law swallowed hard. My son stepped forward. "That's my mother," he said, pointing at me. The man turned and looked directly at me. "May I speak with you?" he asked politely. I nodded. "Yes," I said. "Come in." She tried to protest. "This isn't a good time," she said quickly. "We're in the middle of a family discussion." The man didn't even look at her. "This won't take long," he replied. He stepped inside. And from that moment, the balance in the house shifted. We sat in the living room. The same room where I had been told to leave. The man placed the envelope on the table. "I was asked to verify some documents related to this property," he said. "There have been recent inquiries." My son frowned. "Inquiries?" he asked. "Yes," the man replied. "Requests about ownership, transfer, and future claims." My daughter-in-law's fingers dug into the couch. I watched her closely. She couldn't hide it. Fear had replaced confidence. The man turned to me. "Do you currently own this house?" he asked. "Yes," I said calmly. "Are you the sole owner?" he continued. "Yes," I repeated. Has any transfer of ownership taken place? He asked. No, I said. He nodded and opened the envelope. That's what I thought, he said. He pulled out papers and laid them on the table. These documents are incomplete, he explained. They were submitted without proper authorization. My son leaned forward. Submitted by who? He asked. The man hesitated for just a second. Then he spoke. Your wife, he said. The room exploded. What? My son shouted, standing up. She jumped to her feet. This is a misunderstanding, she said quickly. I was just asking questions. The man shook his head. These were not questions, he said. These were formal requests. My son turned to her. You told me you were only trying to protect us, he said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had no answer ready. I sat quietly, watching, listening, letting the truth breathe. She's lying, my son said finally. She wouldn't do that without telling me. The man looked at him with calm eyes. She did, he said. Then he added something that made my heart beat faster. And this isn't the first time. My daughter-in-law's knees buckled slightly. What do you mean? I asked. The man turned to me. There have been previous attempts, he said. Requests for information. Copies of records. Signatures. Signatures. My hands clenched. Signatures. I repeated. Yes, he said. But none of them were valid. I looked at her. Slowly. Carefully. So that's why my documents went missing, I said softly. She screamed. I was helping, she cried. I was trying to make things easier. For who? My son asked. She broke down. Tears poured. Her voice cracked. For us, she said. For our future. My son backed away from her. My future? He asked. Or your control? The man stood up. I've said what I came to say, he said. But there's one more thing. Everyone froze. There is a clause, he continued, that protects the original owner completely. I felt my chest loosen. The critical detail. My daughter-in-law looked confused. What clause? She asked. The man looked at her calmly. The one that prevents any transfer or claim without the owner's direct presence and consent, he said. He turned to me. And it's very clear, he added. No one can take this house from you. Silence. Heavy. Final. My son sank into a chair. His hands covered his face. I didn't know, he whispered. I looked at him. I know, I said. But the damage was already done. The man left. The door closed. And the house felt different. Not peaceful. Not yet. She sat there quietly. No anger. No confidence. Just fear. She finally looked at me. You planned this, she said. I smiled gently. No, I replied. You did. That night, my son didn't speak to her. He didn't speak to me either. But something had changed. The lies had cracks now. And cracks grow. Later, as I lay in bed, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Because the next morning, I woke up to something missing. Something important. And the sound of a suitcase being dragged across the floor. I woke up before dawn. Not because of noise. Not because of a dream. But because something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. I lay still for a moment, listening. Then I heard it. A slow dragging sound. Like something heavy being pulled across the floor. My heart began to pound. I sat up and looked around my room. That was when I noticed it. The small wooden box. Gone. The box I always kept beside my bed. The box that held the most important things in my life. My hands began to shake. I stood up quickly and checked the drawer. Empty. I opened the cupboard. Empty. My breath caught in my throat. No. No, no, no. I stepped into the hallway. The light in the living room was on. And there, near the door, was a suitcase. Open. Clothes were folded inside. And mixed between them. My papers. My documents. The ones I had carefully locked away. The ones she was never supposed to touch. I felt dizzy. I leaned against the wall to steady myself. That was when I heard her voice. Low. Urgent. I told you we need to leave now, she whispered. Leave. My son replied, his voice tense. It's too early, he said. What are you doing with those? She snapped back. I'm protecting us, she said. They're watching now. Watching. That word made my stomach turn. I stepped forward. What are you doing? I asked. They both froze. My son turned slowly. His face looked tired. Confused. Torn. She slammed the suitcase shut. We're just going away for a few days, she said quickly. To clear our heads. I walked closer. And my documents? I asked calmly. She laughed nervously. Oh, those, she said. I thought they were ours. Ours. I looked at my son. Is that true? I asked. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. They're not. She turned on him instantly. Why are you doing this? She hissed. After everything I've done for you? For me, he asked. Or for yourself? She lost control. The calm mask cracked. You don't understand, she shouted. She's never going to let us live in peace. I stood there silently, listening, watching the truth spill out. She's always been the problem, she continued. Always in the way. Always controlling. My son looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. That's my mother, he said quietly. She laughed bitterly. And this is our future, she screamed, pointing at the house. Or it was, until she ruined everything. Ruined everything. By refusing to be stolen from. I took a deep breath. Put my things down, I said. She ignored me. I'm leaving, she said. With or without you. She grabbed the suitcase handle. That was when my son stepped in front of the door. No, he said. She stared at him. What did you say? She asked. I said no, he repeated. You're not taking anything. Her eyes filled with rage. You're choosing her, she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She dropped the suitcase. Papers spilled onto the floor. Some torn. Some folded. Some damaged. I felt something snap inside me. Not anger. Clarity. You planned this, I said softly. You were going to leave with what you couldn't take legally. She turned to me. You think you're so smart, she spat. But you're old. You don't even understand what's happening. I smiled. I understand perfectly, I said. That's why you're scared. She screamed. She cried. She accused. She begged. All in one breath. My son stood there shaking. I didn't know, he kept saying. I swear I didn't know. I believed him. But belief didn't erase the damage. Finally, she grabbed her bag. I'm done, she said coldly. I won't stay where I'm not wanted. She walked to the door. Then she stopped. And said something that made my blood run cold. This isn't over, she said. You'll regret this. Then she left. The door slammed shut. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. My son sank to the floor. I failed you, he whispered. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to forgive him. But something inside me held back. Because trust, once broken, does not return easily. We cleaned up the mess together. Slowly. Quietly. As the sun rose, the house felt like a battlefield after a war. But deep down I knew. This was not the end. Because desperation makes people dangerous. And she had lost everything she came for. Later that afternoon, the phone rang. My son answered. His face drained of color. He handed me the phone with shaking hands. "They're asking for you," he said. "Who?" I asked. He swallowed. "The police." The word police echoed in my ears. For a moment, I could not breathe. My son held the phone out to me, his hands shaking. "They said it's urgent," he whispered. "They asked for you by name." By name. That alone told me this was not a mistake. I took the phone slowly. "Hello," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. A man spoke on the other end. "Good morning," he said. "We need you to come down to the station. There's been a report made against you." A report. My heart began to race. "What kind of report?" I asked. There was a pause. "An allegation of financial abuse and unlawful threats," he said. I almost dropped the phone. Financial abuse? Threats? I closed my eyes. I knew instantly who had done this. My son's face went pale. "What is it?" he asked. "She called the police," I said quietly. He staggered back as if someone had hit him. "No," he said. "She wouldn't go that far." "She already has," I replied. At the station, the air felt cold, hard, unforgiving. I sat on a wooden bench while my son paced back and forth like a trapped animal. An officer finally called my name. Inside the small room, 2 officers sat across from me. One of them opened a file. "She claims you threatened her," he said. "She claims you tried to force her out of the house," the other added. "She also claims you were hiding money and documents to keep her and your son dependent on you." Each sentence felt like a knife. None of it was true. But lies don't need truth to cause damage. "She said she feared for her safety," one officer continued. "That you were emotionally unstable." Emotionally unstable. I almost laughed. Instead, I took a deep breath. "May I speak?" I asked calmly. They nodded. And I told them everything. From the beginning. The marriage. The manipulation. The documents. The attempted transfer. The suitcase. The night she left. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I spoke slowly. Clearly. Truth has a steady rhythm. Then one officer asked a question that changed everything. "Do you have proof?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My son looked at me, surprised. "Yes," I repeated. "I do." Back at the house, I had kept copies. Not because I planned revenge, but because I had learned something over the years. When people start whispering, you start recording the truth. I showed them the documents. The incomplete transfer forms. The timeline. The envelope the man had brought. The messages. Even the call logs. The officers exchanged looks. Their expressions changed. One of them stood up. "We'll need to speak with her," he said. My son let out a breath he had been holding. "Am I in trouble?" I asked quietly. The officer shook his head. "No," he said. "You're the one who was targeted." When we left the station, my legs felt weak. Outside, my son stopped walking. He turned to me, tears filling his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he said. I believed her. I looked at him for a long moment. "I know," I said. That was all. That evening, the house was silent again. But it was a different kind of silence. Heavy with regret. Heavy with truth. My son barely ate. He barely spoke. Finally, he asked the question he had been avoiding. "Will you ever forgive me?" he asked. I did not answer right away. Because forgiveness is not a switch. It is a journey. Later that night, the phone rang again. This time, my son answered. His face went stiff. "She wants to talk to you," he said. I shook my head. "No," I replied. But then he said something that made me pause. She's crying, he added. She says she made a mistake. A mistake. No. This was not a mistake. This was exposure. I took the phone. She sobbed loudly. They're treating me like a criminal, she cried. You did this to me. I said nothing. You always wanted me gone, she continued. You poisoned him against me. I laughed softly. You did that yourself, I replied. Then she whispered something that made my skin crawl. If I can't have peace, no one will. The line went dead. That night, I could not sleep. Because those words were not spoken in anger. They were spoken with purpose. And deep down, I knew something else was coming. Something desperate. Something dangerous. The next morning, an officer came to the house. He looked serious. We need to inform you, he said, that she has filed another complaint. My stomach dropped. Another? I asked. He nodded. And this one is worse. When the officer said, this one is worse, my legs went weak. Worse than lies about money. Worse than false claims of threats. My son grabbed a chair for me before I fell. What is it? He asked, his voice tight. The officer took a slow breath. She's accusing you of forging documents, he said. And coercing her husband, your son, into signing papers under pressure. I felt the room spin. Forgery. Coercion. I looked at my son. He looked back at me, shocked. That's impossible, he said. I never signed anything. The officer nodded. We know, he said. But accusations like this don't disappear on their own. This time, they did not ask me to come to the station. They asked me to prepare. To gather everything. Every paper. Every record. Every message. Because this accusation, if believed, could take away my freedom. That afternoon, my house turned into a place of fear. Every sound made me jump. Every car outside made my heart race. I had done nothing wrong. But innocence does not stop consequences. My son sat with his head in his hands. I brought this into your life, he said quietly. I did this. I reached out and touched his arm. No, I said. You were targeted. But inside, I was terrified. Because I knew something he didn't. She was not acting out of panic. She was acting out of revenge. Later that day, the officer returned, with another person. A woman. Calm. Professional. She introduced herself and explained her role. We're here to verify timelines, she said. And to understand intent. Intent. That word followed me everywhere. They asked questions for hours. When did you buy the house? Who paid for it? Where were the documents kept? Who had access? I answered everything. Slowly. Truthfully. My son confirmed every word. Then they asked him something that made my chest tighten. Did your wife ever ask you to sign papers without reading them? He froze. Yes, he admitted. Once. When? The woman asked. A few months ago, he said. She said it was just for bank records. What did you do? The woman asked. I refused, he replied. Something didn't feel right. The room went quiet. That was the moment the story began to crack open. Because now, her version no longer made sense. The officer looked at me. Do you have the original copies of your documents? He asked. Yes, I said. I went to my room. My hands shook as I unlocked the drawer. Inside were the originals. Untouched. Unforged. Exactly as they had always been. The woman examined them carefully. These are clean, she said. No alterations. She looked up at me. This accusation doesn't hold. I felt my knees weaken. But relief was short-lived. Because she wasn't done. There's something else, she said. She pulled out a folder. Inside were printed messages. Text messages. Emails. Voice notes transcribed into words. My daughter-in-law's words. Clear. Cold. Calculated. I need to make sure she signs. If she doesn't cooperate, I'll scare her. He'll believe me. He always does. My son gasped. What is this? He asked. The woman met his eyes. Evidence, she said. I felt sick. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because the truth was uglier than I imagined. This was not confusion. This was not misunderstanding. This was planning. The officer closed the file. She tried to protect herself by attacking you, he said. But she left a trail. My son stood up suddenly. Where is she now? He asked. The officer answered calmly. She's been located. My heart skipped. Located. I repeated. Yes, he said. And she wants to meet. No, my son said immediately. She doesn't deserve. She asked for you, the officer interrupted. And for your mother. I felt cold. She says she has something important to say, he added. I knew what that meant. People don't ask to meet when they're innocent. They ask to meet when they're cornered. That night, I could not sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought of every moment I had doubted myself. Every time I stayed quiet. Every warning sign I ignored. And I understood something painful. Love blinded me. In the morning, we were escorted to a small room. She was already there. Sitting. Waiting. She looked smaller. But her eyes were still sharp. Dangerous. She smiled when she saw me. A slow, knowing smile. You look tired, she said. I said nothing. She turned to my son. Sit, she said gently. He didn't move. I know you think I'm the villain, she continued. But I did everything for us. For control, I replied. Her smile faded. I protected our future, she snapped. You tried to steal mine, I said calmly. She leaned forward. And what if I say I can make all this go away? She whispered. The room froze. What do you want? My son asked. She looked at me. Then she said the words that made my blood run cold. I want her out of the house, she said. Permanently. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. The officer stood up. This meeting is over, he said. But the damage was already done. Because now we knew. She was not finished. Not yet. As we left the room, the officer leaned toward me and spoke quietly. You need to be careful, he said. She's desperate. And desperation makes people do terrible things. That night, as I locked my bedroom door, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Only 4 words. You will lose. The message stayed on my screen for a long time. You will lose. 4 words. No greeting. No explanation. No fear. Just a promise. I showed the message to my son. His hands clenched into fists. She's threatening you, he said. We need to report this. I nodded. But deep inside, I already knew something. This message was not meant to scare me. It was meant to prepare me. The very next morning, the phone would not stop ringing. Friends. Relatives. Even people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all asked the same question. What did you do? My chest tightened. What do you mean? I asked one of them. There was a pause on the line. I saw it online, she said carefully. A post. About you. Online. My hands went cold. My son opened his phone. His face drained of color. She had posted everything. Or at least, her version of everything. Long messages. Tearful words. Carefully chosen sentences. She wrote that she had married into a cruel family. That she had been mentally abused. That she had been threatened and chased out. That an unstable mother-in-law controlled everything. She didn't use my name. She didn't have to. People knew. The comments were worse. She's evil. How can a mother do that to her son's wife? Old people can be dangerous. Each word felt like poison. My hands trembled. My son threw the phone onto the couch. She's trying to destroy you, he said. Your name. Your dignity. And she was succeeding. By afternoon, neighbors were whispering. Some avoided my eyes. Some looked at me with judgment. Others with curiosity. The house I had lived in peacefully for years suddenly felt unsafe. I closed the curtains, locked the doors, and sat in silence. She wants to shame you, my son said quietly. She wants you to give up. I nodded. Yes, I said. This is her last move. Because when people lose control, they go for reputation. That evening, an officer came again. Not to accuse me. To warn me. She's spreading false statements, he said. We're monitoring it. Will it stop? I asked. He sighed. Eventually, he said. But damage travels faster than truth. That night I cried. Not loudly. Quietly. For the first time since this began. I cried for my husband. For my son. For the peace I once had. But when the tears stopped, something else took their place. Resolve. The next morning, my son came to me with determination in his eyes. I'm done protecting her, he said. I want the truth out. I looked at him carefully. Are you sure? I asked. Yes, he said. No more silence. Together, we gathered everything. The documents. The timelines. The messages. The evidence. Every lie. Every attempt. Every threat. We did not rush. We prepared. When the response finally went out, it was calm, clear, factual. No insults. No shouting. No emotion. Just truth. My son spoke. Publicly. For the first time. He explained everything. How he had been manipulated. How documents were taken. How lies were told. How the police became involved. And most importantly, he said this. My mother did not abuse anyone. She was the one being targeted. The reaction was immediate. Comments changed tone. Questions appeared. Support returned. People began asking her questions she could not answer. Where's the proof? Why did the police get involved? Why did you try to take property that wasn't yours? Her silence was loud. That afternoon, another message came. This time, longer, angrier. You think you've won, she wrote. This isn't over. I didn't reply. Because I knew something she didn't. An hour later, the officer called. She's been formally charged, he said. False reporting. Harassment. Attempted fraud. I closed my eyes. Not in joy. In relief. My son sat beside me. She did all this because she missed one detail, he said quietly. I nodded. Yes, I replied. She thought fear would make me give up. That evening, as the sun went down, the house felt quiet again. But this time, it was a peaceful quiet. Yet, deep down, I knew the story was not finished. Because consequences were coming. And she had not faced the hardest one yet. As I turned off the light and prepared to sleep, my son said something softly. There's one more thing you should know. I looked at him. What? I asked. He swallowed. She's coming back tomorrow. She came back the next morning. Not quietly. Not in shame. Not like someone who had lost. She came back like someone who believed she still had one last move. I was in the kitchen when my son walked in, his face tight. She's outside, he said. I did not stop stirring the pot. I know, I replied calmly. He looked at me, surprised. You knew? He asked. Yes, I said. People like her never leave without trying to take something with them. The knock came seconds later. Not the confident knock from before. This one was sharp, urgent, impatient. My son moved toward the door, but I stopped him. "I'll handle this," I said. When I opened the door, she stood there. Her hair was neat. Her clothes were perfect. Her face was calm. Too calm. But her eyes told a different story. They were tired, angry, desperate. "I want to talk," she said. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looking around the house like she was memorizing it for the last time. "This place still smells the same," she said lightly. I did not respond. My son stood behind me, silent. She turned to him. "You're really going to stand there like that?" she asked. "After everything we shared?" He said nothing. That hurt her. I could see it. She sat down. No invitation. No permission. Straightened her clothes and folded her hands. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I came to fix things." Fix. That word again. "You've ruined my life," she continued. "People are calling me names. I've lost friends. I've lost everything." I met her eyes. "You ruined your own life," I replied. Her jaw tightened. "You think you're innocent," she snapped. "You pushed me." I shook my head. "No," I said. I stood still. "You ran." She took a deep breath. "Let's end this," she said. "I'll drop everything. The posts. The accusations. The drama. And in return?" I asked. She smiled. That smile made my skin crawl. "You leave," she said. Silence filled the room. My son gasped. "Leave?" he repeated. "Yes," she said. "Sell the house. Give him his share. Move somewhere else. That's the only way this ends peacefully." Peacefully. Like peace could be bought with surrender. I stood up. Slowly. Carefully. "This house is not a bargaining chip," I said. "And I am not something you trade." She stood too. "You're old," she hissed. "You don't need all this space. You don't need control." Control. There it was again. My son finally spoke. "Stop," he said. She turned to him, shocked. "You're choosing her again?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes," he said. "Because she's my mother. And because you lied." Her face twisted. "You promised me a future," she said to him. "I promised honesty," he replied. "You promised manipulation." She laughed. A sharp, broken sound. "You think this is over," she said. "You think the law will save you?" I looked at her calmly. "No," I said. "The truth will." She reached into her bag. Slowly. Deliberately. My son stepped forward. "What are you doing?" he asked. She pulled out an envelope and threw it on the table. "Sign it," she said. "Or this goes public again." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. "I won't sign anything," I said. She leaned closer. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. I leaned closer too. "No," I said quietly. "You already did." There was a knock at the door. This time, not hers. Firm. Official. She froze. My son opened the door. 2 officers stood outside. "Good morning," one said. "We're here to speak with you." Her confidence shattered instantly. "What is this?" she demanded. They stepped inside. "You violated a restraining directive," the officer said. "And you're being served additional charges." Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. She looked at me. "You did this," she said. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "You walked into it." As they escorted her out, she turned back one last time. "This house will never feel like home again," she said. I watched her carefully. "It already does," I replied. The door closed. My son sank into a chair. "It's finally over," he said. I did not answer, because deep inside, I knew something important. The battle was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. That night, as I sat alone in the living room, I looked around the house. Every wall, every corner, every memory. I realized something powerful. She married my son and turned him against me. Yes. But she missed one critical detail. This house was not just built with money. It was built with truth. And truth always survives. The house felt different after she was gone. Not quiet. Not empty. But lighter. Like a heavy shadow had finally lifted from the walls. My son and I sat across from each other in the living room for a long time without speaking. The same living room where everything had fallen apart. The same place where he once told me to leave. Now, he could barely look at me. I don't know how to fix what I broke, he said finally, his voice shaking. I studied his face. He looked older. Tired. Humbled. You don't fix something like this with words, I said softly. You fix it with truth. And time. He nodded slowly. I chose wrong, he said. I let someone turn me against the person who gave me life. I reached for his hand. You were manipulated, I said. But you also learned. He began to cry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet tears falling onto his hands. And in that moment, I knew something important. The woman who tried to destroy me failed in the one place that mattered most. She failed to break the bond completely. 2 weeks later, the consequences finally arrived. Not for me. For her. The charges moved forward. False reports. Harassment. Attempted fraud. Everything she had done in secret was now written in black and white. She tried to bargain. She tried to blame. She even tried to send messages through mutual friends. But it was too late. The truth had teeth now. One evening, my son came home holding a folder. It's done, he said. What is? I asked. I filed for separation, he replied. I said nothing. I also signed a legal statement, he continued. Public. Official. Clearing your name completely. I closed my eyes. Not in victory. In peace. The rumors faded. The whispers stopped. Neighbors who once avoided me now greeted me again. Friends apologized. Family called. But the most important change happened inside the house. My son changed. He cooked meals for me. Sat with me. Listened. He no longer spoke for me. He spoke with me. One afternoon, he surprised me. I want you to put the house in a trust, he said. I looked up. For who? I asked. For you, he said. Only you. I don't want control. I want protection, for you. I smiled. That was the detail she never saw coming. You see, from the very beginning, there was one critical thing she never understood. I was not weak. I was quiet. I did not survive decades of hardship by being careless. I survived by being prepared. The house was never just a building. It was my shield. My proof. My ground. And because everything was done properly, legally, clearly, truthfully, no amount of manipulation could take it away. Today, I still live here. In my home. In my peace. My son is rebuilding his life. Slowly. Carefully. With honesty this time. And as for her, she is gone. Not just from the house, but from the story. If you're listening to this and you feel overlooked, if you've been quiet while others tried to control you, if you've been underestimated because of your age, your kindness, or your silence, remember this. Silence is not weakness. Patience is not surrender. And truth always outlives lies. Thank you for staying with me till the end. If this story touched you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more powerful, real-life emotional stories like this one. Also, tell me in the comments, Backhand index pointing right. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Backhand index pointing right. And what country are you watching from? Your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, the detail they miss is the one that saves you.